On a scorching summer afternoon in the small town of Amberfield, Kentucky, the clock had just passed noon. Michael Winston, a Marine Corps veteran, had been on the road for over 500 miles in the past few days, making his way to visit friends in another state. His old-fashioned truck, weathered but reliable, began to hum persistently, as if pleading for a break. Spotting a sign for a roadside diner up ahead, Michael decided it was time for a quick stop. The place was modest, an aging parking lot, a few worn-out tables, and an old hot dog van stationed by the roadside. It wasn't much, but it promised enough peace for a cup of coffee and a moment to rest. Michael climbed out of the truck, adjusted his cap, and took a quick glance around. The blistering heat hit him like a wave, instantly reminding him of the intensity of the summer day. The scorching heat pressed against Michael's face, stirring memories of countless days spent under the relentless desert sun during his service. A faint breeze offered little relief, prompting him to instinctively reach for a bottle of water from his truck. As he took a sip, something in the parking lot caught his eye. A little black girl, no older than 8 or 9, standing beside an elderly white man near a soda machine. There was an unsettling quality about the scene. The girl's posture was tense, her small hands nervously fidgeting with the hem of her worn t-shirt. Her wide, darting eyes scanned her surroundings like someone searching for an escape. The man, in stark contrast, appeared eerily composed. Tall, with a slight belly and slicked-back gray hair, he leaned casually against the soda machine, staring straight ahead as if unaware of everything around him. Yet something about the situation gnawed at Michael. Years of military training had sharpened his instincts to pick up on subtle cues, details that could mean the difference between life and death. And right now, every instinct told him something was wrong. Here's the revised version of the passage. Michael felt a familiar tension lingering in the air, the kind that had often preceded critical moments during his service. He hesitated for a moment before deciding to step inside the diner. The atmosphere inside was calm and subdued. A couple of truckers sat at the counter, lazily chatting about their routes, while an elderly woman sipped her coffee alone at a corner table. Aside from the soft murmur of the radio, the place was quiet, almost too quiet. Michael ordered a coffee and chose a seat by the window, keeping the pair by the soda machine in his line of sight. The girl and the man were still there. The girl's movements seemed odd, small, almost imperceptible hand gestures that might have gone unnoticed by a casual observer. Then it happened. Michael caught a quick motion of her fingers that made his heart stop. She was signaling. It was an international SOS gesture, unmistakable to anyone trained to recognize it. The girl raised her hand and repeated the motion, this time slower, as if testing whether anyone would notice. Michael's grip on his coffee cup tightened, his knuckles whitening under the pressure. The realization hit him like a jolt. This girl is in danger. But what exactly was happening? The scene outside gave no immediate answers. Michael's instincts urged him to act, but he knew from experience that rash decisions could escalate situations in unpredictable ways. He needed to think, fast, but carefully. Acting impulsively could make things worse and put the girl in even greater danger. Yet Michael's sense of duty, as both a citizen and a former soldier, refused to let him sit idly by. Taking another sip of coffee, he forced himself to stay calm, maintaining the appearance of a casual diner patron. He kept his eyes on the pair outside, pretending to enjoy his drink. The girl still looked tense, her body rigid, while the man, whom she presumably called her father, occasionally cast her strange, cautious glances. At one point, he leaned in and whispered something to her. Michael noticed the girl's face go pale, her small hands clenched into fists, trembling slightly. Michael's breath quickened. That's not her father, he thought, the conviction settling heavily in his chest. Everything about the man's demeanor screamed deception. If this had been an ordinary family trip, the girl wouldn't look so terrified. And that signal, the SOS gesture, was no accident. He began to analyze the situation methodically, relying on the instincts and training that had kept him alive in countless tense scenarios. The man's calmness was unnatural, almost calculated. Meanwhile, the girl's behavior betrayed desperation. Then a memory surfaced. A few months ago, Michael had seen a news report about a new hand signal circulating on social media, a subtle but unmistakable plea for help. Women and children in dangerous situations were being taught this gesture as a discreet way to alert someone who might be able to intervene. Adrenaline surged through Michael's veins. This wasn't a coincidence. The girl was in trouble, and she needed someone to notice. It was up to him to figure out what to do next. Before it was too late, adrenaline coursed through Michael's body. That's the signal, he thought. This girl is clearly asking for help. Michael despised the feeling of helplessness. He was a man of action, trained to make quick, decisive moves. But here, in this quiet diner filled with unsuspecting people, the first move felt impossibly difficult. He knew the risks. If he was wrong, the consequences could be severe. Yet the thought of leaving the girl in potential danger was unbearable. Taking a deep breath, Michael resolved to confirm his suspicions. Stepping out of the diner, he approached the soda machine, pretending to buy a drink. As he neared the pair, he leaned in slightly and spoke in a low, calm voice. "Are you okay? Are you with this man?" His words were soft but laced with tension. The girl glanced up at him, her eyes wide and filled with fear. She didn't speak but responded with the same subtle SOS gesture, her hand trembling as she made it. Michael's chest tightened. He nodded slightly, forcing himself to remain composed. "Don't worry," he whispered, careful not to draw the man's attention. "I'll help." Stepping away casually, Michael pulled out his phone and walked a few feet from the pair, pretending to text. Instead, he dialed 911. "This is Winston," he said quietly when the dispatcher answered. "I suspect a kidnapping. I'm at a roadside diner off Highway 67. There's a little girl, about 8 years old, with an elderly man. She's signaling for help, an SOS gesture. Please send someone urgently." His heart pounded as he ended the call and returned to his seat in the diner, positioning himself where he could still keep a close eye on the pair. The minutes stretched on like hours as he waited for help to arrive. Deep down, Michael knew he had done the right thing, but a small part of him still clung to the hope that this was all a misunderstanding. Several agonizing moments passed, each one intensifying the knot in his stomach. Minutes dragged by before the sound of approaching sirens broke the tension. Michael glanced at the girl again. She caught his gaze, her eyes filled with a desperate plea for help. As the patrol car pulled up to the diner, Michael noticed the man tense up. His calm facade crumbled as he glanced around nervously. 2 police officers stepped out of the car, one of them walking straight toward the man. "Excuse me, sir," the officer said, his tone polite but firm. "May I have a word with you?" The man froze, his hand resting on the girl's shoulder. "What's going on?" "We're just traveling," he replied, his voice tinged with irritation. "There's reason to believe this girl may be in danger," the officer responded evenly. At those words, the girl paled. In a sudden burst of courage, she broke free from the man's grip and bolted toward Michael. Grabbing his hand, her small fingers trembled in his grasp. The man, stunned by her sudden escape, stammered out excuses, but it was too late. The officers acted swiftly, arresting him on the spot. Later, at the police station, the truth came to light. The man, Greg, was the girl's stepfather. He had been attempting to take her to another state after Zoe, her mother, had lost a custody battle. His plan was to flee with the girl so her mother could regain control over her. Not long after, the girl's father arrived at the station. The reunion between father and daughter was filled with tears of relief and joy. Michael stood silently in the background, watching as the weight of fear and uncertainty lifted from the little girl's face. As he stepped outside into the evening air, Michael allowed himself a small smile. He hadn't hesitated when it mattered most, and today, that had made all the difference. Michael watched from the sidelines, a quiet sense of satisfaction settling over him. He knew his intervention had spared the girl from a catastrophe. The girl's father approached him, gratitude evident in his every step. Gripping Michael's hand tightly, he said, "Thank you. If it weren't for you." "No thanks needed," Michael interrupted, shaking his head. "I just did what I had to do." He replayed the events in his mind, particularly the moment he first noticed the girl's distress. Sitting in the diner earlier, Michael had tried to remain calm while keeping a close watch on the man and the girl. The elderly man had leaned toward her, whispering something. For a split second, the girl froze, holding her breath as if bracing herself. And then, she raised her hand again. The gesture stunned Michael. It was the SOS signal, clear and deliberate. Fingers curled, hand raised. It wasn't a coincidence. She was asking for help. Adrenaline surged through him. His heart raced, but he forced himself to think logically. Acting impulsively could provoke the man into doing something reckless, especially if the girl was at risk of harm. Leaving his coffee unfinished, Michael stood and walked out of the diner. His mind worked quickly, analyzing the scene. Everything outside appeared calm, too calm. The normalcy of it all belied the tension that had gripped him since spotting the girl. Time to act, he thought, steeling himself. But he needed a plan, one that would keep the girl safe while ensuring the man couldn't slip away unnoticed. The normalcy of the scene only heightened Michael's unease. This man was not her father. That much was clear. Every detail, every subtle cue, pointed to something being horribly wrong. Pausing by his truck, Michael took a moment to consider his options. He knew every second counted. His mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Should I approach the girl immediately? Should I gather more information? What if I'm wrong? The doubts swirled in his mind, but his instincts as a veteran, honed in countless high-stakes situations, screamed that it was better to act now than regret later. Still, caution was key. Returning to the diner, Michael glanced toward the man and the girl. They were now standing near the edge of the parking lot, as if preparing to leave. His chest tightened. There was no time to wait. Taking a deep breath, Michael stepped toward them, keeping his demeanor calm and casual. "Hi there," he said, his voice friendly but deliberate. "Sorry to bother you, but I noticed something earlier. Is everything all right?" The man stiffened ever so slightly, a flash of tension crossing his face before he masked it with a forced grin. "Yeah, everything's fine," he replied, his tone overly casual. "This is my daughter. We're just making a quick stop before hitting the road." Michael didn't miss the faint edge of falseness in his voice. His gut told him this was a lie. The girl glanced at Michael for the briefest moment. In her wide, frightened eyes, he saw the truth. Her silent plea for help confirmed his worst suspicions. "I see," Michael said, keeping his tone calm. "It just seemed like something was bothering you." The man let out a strained laugh. No, we're fine," he said, his voice slightly too loud, too forced. He leaned down toward the girl, his hand tightening on her shoulder. "Right, sweetheart?" The girl didn't answer. Her silence spoke volumes, and then, once more, she raised her hand, subtly repeating the same SOS signal Michael had seen before. Michael's chest tightened, anger simmering beneath the surface. This girl is in real danger. If I don't act now, this could end badly, he thought, his resolve hardening. Without hesitation, he slipped his phone out of his pocket and turned slightly away, pretending to scroll as he quietly called 911. Speaking in a low, measured voice, he reported everything he'd observed, providing the location and describing the situation in detail. The wait felt agonizing, each second stretching into an eternity. Michael's eyes never left the pair, his every nerve on edge. Then, faintly at first, the sound of sirens pierced the tense air, growing louder with each passing moment. Help is on the way, Michael thought, steadying himself for what might come next.